Welcome back to WagerTalk.com Video Best Bets Part 2. You already heard Brian and Ralph's best bets in an earlier video. Now it's time for Preston and myself to offer ours. And Preston, we're going to start with you. We're going to head to the Big 12. You're looking at West Virginia, Texas Tech. What are you looking at, my friend?
Yeah, I want to back West Virginia -1 is the number across the board now. And it's mostly just a numbers play, and I'll kind of talk through why that is. But there's also some other variables. We talked about one before the video that play into our hand in this case as well. But ultimately, 2 weeks ago, West Virginia closed -3 at home to Kansas State. And this was actually a number that I bet when it got to 2.5 on West Virginia, and it moved up a half.
I was on West Virginia.
You were as well? My number was 4.5, so I actually rate West Virginia 1.5 more than Kansas State, and there's 3 for home field in that case. So if they're 1.5 better than Kansas State, who closed -10 against Texas Tech last week, reverse the home fields in Kansas State and Texas Tech, Kansas State would be laying 4 at Texas Tech. Mm-hmm. And I have West Virginia 1.5 better than Kansas State. So, I mean, this should be 5.5, at least 4. And you're not even factoring in the fact that you have West Virginia off of a bye, and you have Patrick Mohamed, the quarterback for Texas Tech, who's playing with an injured shoulder. And he was probably not even supposed to play last week. At the last second, they said he was going to go, and it was very evident that he just didn't have as much behind his passes and his balls. After a couple,
look at that last, the 4th and 16.
Yeah. The last drive, there was a 4th and 16 PI, and then that's what was funny is there was 25 seconds left, and they still needed to go 50 yards. And they tried, basically it was 2 Hail Marys, and he could only get it like 25 yards in the air, and they were just ducks, bloops, and somehow they caught both of them. So they backdoored. But once Kansas State adjusted to that, which they did after about 20 minutes, they gave up 28 in the first quarter and a half, and then after that it was a field goal the rest of the way until the buzzer touchdown. Kansas State's defense responded well. They figured out, wait, this guy can't make throws. Mm-hmm. And they just weren't, they obviously took away his legs in the run game that Texas Tech had done more efficiently early on. So anyways, I expect West Virginia to obviously do the same thing. The number is just way, way short. If this doesn't close a field goal, I'd honestly be surprised. I would lay it under a field goal, if this starts moving to 2.5.
Did Texas Tech actually open up 1?
Yeah, that's already moved to 2 points the other way. So I like this up to the field goal. I think there's plenty of value, and it's a pretty good spot. And one other thing you did mention, Dana Holgorsen, the head coach for West Virginia, he used to be on the staff at Texas Tech. You look at some of their past scores. TTU team that's normally scoring 40 to 50 points a game, doesn't get to that number ever against West Virginia. He definitely plays them a little bit better than anybody else.
Good stuff. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that one. I'm going to go Virginia Tech and Syracuse for my best bet this week. And, every week, and I talked about it last week, I do a spot on our radio show, the sandwich spot. And you talk about a sandwich spot. This one, I'm actually going to be calling it my Hurricane Hoagie, because we got Virginia Tech and Syracuse. Both teams last week were affected by the hurricane in different ways. Virginia Tech benefited from the hurricane because they played North Carolina, a team that passes the football predominantly and can't stop the run. Well, that's all they could do last week in those weather conditions was run the football, and Virginia Tech took advantage of it. North Carolina had several turnovers, 4 of them, in fact, and the game got out of control, and it made Virginia Tech look much better than they were in a 34-3 romp. On the flip side to that, you have Syracuse, who played a Wake Forest team last week, and Syracuse this year is going to an up-tempo offense. They're throwing the football more. In fact, this season, they have averaged 48 passes per game for 370 yards. Last week, they were only able to pass it 26 times for 168 yards because of the weather conditions. It definitely hampered what they wanted to do offensively last week, and they ended up losing. They were on the wrong side of a lopsided 28-9 score. So what's that do for us this week? It gives us an inflated line on a Virginia Tech team that's laying 19.5 in Syracuse. Earlier this season, now granted, it was early in the season before we knew how good Louisville was, but Louisville only laid 17 here earlier in the season. Yeah. And now you got Virginia Tech laying 19.5. And Syracuse, they were still learning the new offense. So they're better as they're getting later in the season with it. And throw in the fact that Virginia Tech is in a mammoth sandwich. They're coming off of the North Carolina win last week, which was a big win for the ACC division. And next week they got the showdown with Miami, which basically the winner of that game is going to control their own destiny to the Coastal Division of that conference. This is a horrible spot for Virginia Tech.
I believe that game's on Thursday. It's a short week too, so they play it right away 5 days later.
Makes it even better here. I think Virginia Tech, I like Justin Fuente. I love what he did at Memphis, and we're seeing how quick he's turned, the Virginia Tech team around. But this is a horrible spot for him. I like Syracuse plus the points. Virginia Tech gets the win. I'll call it by 10, 19.5 points, just way too many points. I got to take Syracuse here. Preston, you got anything going this weekend you want to tell listeners about?
Nothing particularly. Just get the week or the weekend pass, and that's the way to go. Last week was a similar thing. Didn't have any big plays. Won't have any this week either. And I think we're 2-1 on those so far this year, but nothing that's popped up in a couple weeks since that Clemson game. So I'm not going to force anything. When it comes up, I'll mention it next week.
But you're having a great college football season.
The best 6 weeks of college football I've ever had in my life, to be honest. It's been really, really fortunate, and hopefully we can keep grinding out positive weeks. I don't expect to have the 17-3 weeks more than once, so let alone twice. Anyways, so yeah, we're happy where we're at, and hopefully we just keep
ain't broke, don't fix it, buddy. Yeah. Check out, I'm going to have a 5% on Sunday. Haven't finalized the Saturday card, but we're going to have several plays on Saturday. But I do have a 5% coming Sunday. I like the situation on a game. Sunday will be my NFL game of the month. You can check that out at wagertalk.com. That's it for this week's videos. Good luck this week. We'll be back next week with more here at wagertalk.com. And don't forget, use that coupon code Indians10 and you'll save $10 on a package this week at WagerTalk. Talk to you next week.